Okay, I think we'll get started. Thank you all for coming. My name is Dave Dunlock. I'm the Deputy Superintendent for the Oshkosh Area School District. What does that mean? Well, that's a great question, depending on the day. But I work with the learning side of the organization and the IT side of the organization. So I consider that to be I have the funnest job in the district. Oshkosh was kind of a unique district back in about 2010. We had some serious deficiencies in the area of IT, as well as just some operational problems in the school system. We decided very early on, part of the problem was we were not connected enough to our community. And if your school district is not connected to their community, you risk that at your own peril. Because eventually you're going to need the community, and you can't just go to them when when it's referendum time. You have to have that deep relationship. They have to know what your problems are before you know what your problems are. So we partnered with the Oshkosh Area Community Foundation. They gave $90,000 to do a community-wide survey and started a group called Oshkosh for Education. And what that group did is it surveyed the entire Oshkosh community, and it came up with a series of priorities. There were 5 main core priorities. And the board looked at those and said, yep, that's what our community wants. Administration, figure out how to get there. So what we did is we crafted a very detailed strategic plan that we go through every week as a cabinet, and that strategic plan allowed us to make some big inroads. Now, a subset of that strategic plan was our 3-year technology plan that we kicked off in 2012-2013 school year. And there's really 2 different things I want to highlight from that. In 2013-16, priority 4 was equity among schools. The community said we'd like equity among schools. Some schools have smart boards, some don't. Some schools have good access to tech, some have bad. It was all over the board, and it really depended upon which school you went to as to what type of resources your child would have access to. And frankly put, that's just wrong. And the community said that's wrong, fix that. So a sub-goal under there was developing our 3-year tech plan to fix that. Just to give you an idea, fast forward to 2016-19, we did the same process all over again. This is after we passed 2 referenda. This is after we began implementing our one-to-one initiative. They came back and said, now priority 1 is improve student learning for everybody. And goal 1A is to support this personalized learning environment. Just to give you an evolution of what occurred over that span of time. So that's how we started from the big picture lens. Then we moved down into creating a personalized learning environment for our students, which required us to go one-to-one. In going one-to-one, what we did is we sat down with a very comprehensive district technology committee, and we busted them up into different action teams. And team 1 looked at learning management system selection. The first question they asked was, do we need one? Yes or no? We had several. You probably have several systems in there. We had everything from Moodle to Google Classroom and everything in between. And they came back very quickly and said, in all the research we had done, an LMS is absolutely critical to successful one-to-ones. Those districts that didn't have one, got one. And those that had one at the beginning found that it really accelerated their efforts. So that was a big key. So that LMS team then had to move from that phase into creating their own rubric. And then they used that rubric to select a system. We happened to select Canvas among several very good candidates. Schoology was out there, It's Learning was out there. There were some others as well, but those were the top 3 finalists. Team 2 worked on our parent-student handbook. This was a very important team because your parents are going to have 1,000 different questions, and you have to have some sort of a handbook in order to be able to answer those questions in a very coherent way. So that team spent a lot of time working with the other teams. Team 3, digital citizenship and curricular materials that go along with it. This was our media specialists. They led this particular team. And in a lot of cases, districts are struggling to find a role for their media specialists because they're either a media specialist or they're a librarian. And there's very different roles there between those 2. What we found was this gave our team a real focus of their efforts and value for the organization. Team 4, policy and rule development, that was what I led. Incredibly exciting, probably the most fun team of the group. Sitting down and going through board policies, nothing's more exciting than that. That team, fortunately, we had the assistance of Neola that was doing all the rest of our board policies, so we just dovetailed on top of that. But we did have to make some pretty significant changes to be prepared for some of the things we're doing. For example, fining kids if devices are broken, all that has to have language and policy. Team 5, professional development, both short-term in getting ready for the one-to-one, long-term, what do we do after the one-to-one's already in place. Team 6, student tech support and creating articulated credit opportunities. So the student tech support side is we have innovation labs in both of our high schools. Those innovation labs are manned by kids who are youth apprenticed through my IT department. They also are getting articulated credit with Fox Valley Technical College to get their A+ certification. All of this at the same time. So they are serving as sort of our tech minions in many ways. Now, there's more than just those 2 kids. There's a series of kids that go with them, but there's only 2 that I actually employ, and then they join us over the summer and help us with a lot of our summer work. So that worked out very well. Team 7 was a big one, and I bold-faced it for a reason. Logistics and support. Now, this is a building level logistics. Well, I shouldn't say that. This is the district level logistics, but it partners with Oshkosh West and Oshkosh North tech teams that do building level logistics. We made a big show of the idea that we're going to hand the baton off to the building. In other words, we do all our stuff at the district level, make sure all our ducks are in a row, but then we go up to the building principal and say, your baby, take it from this point forward. So that each building has to have their own logistics team that marries with our logistics team that these guys will talk about in a second. So all of those worked together over a span of a year and played off each other and often required things from each other. The end goal of all of this was personalized learning, and this is where we need to keep our eye on the ball. Okay, this is why we're doing what we do. The technology is simply nothing more than lights, heat, everything else. It's the fuel that makes this happen. The problem is very few people know personalized learning. This is the most overused term in the business right now. Everybody's saying we're doing personalized learning. You ask them to define it, and good luck with that. It's going to be all over the board. If you research personalized learning, it's pretty simple. We created this graphic for people to kind of say, what is it really about? Well, the most important part is at the core, and that's your content and performance standards. That's what you want the student to know and be able to do, right? Pretty simple stuff, but you got to start with that. And some districts avoid that, or they don't look at it, or they don't score to it. So we do that very intentionally. The rest of it is simple. Voice, choice, pacing options. Now, what the heck does that mean? Well, voice means the learner gets to collaborate with the teacher to determine how are they going to demonstrate mastery. It isn't about getting the right answer. That was the education system we grew up in. There was one right answer, you parroted exactly what the teacher gave you, and you got an A. Okay? That skill is next to useless in the current world. Okay? So what we are doing now is we're trying to create a system where the learner partners with the teacher and says, look, here's what I have to demonstrate mastery of, here's how I intend to do it, and I intend to use these tools to make that happen. And that has unleashed a lot of creativity and also a lot of increased student engagement. Next one is choice. The learner chooses where, when, and how the learning will occur. 24/7, 365. That's why we give them Chromebooks, and we let them go, and a lot of this work occurs at 7, 8 at night. A lot of this work occurs in the school bus on the way home. Okay, there's a lot of different options for students. Next, pacing. Learner advances, this is the tough one. Learner advances when mastery is demonstrated. That means that you no longer have all the kids walking along at the same pace. We were all in a class that went too fast for us or too slow for us. And what this is about is making sure that we are able to allow the learner to advance as soon as they've mastered the content. So that's the system, that's the end goal. All the rest of this is a means to that end. So what we did is we broke this down and we said there were 4 phases to making all of that happen. Phase 1, we started from 10, 11 to around 12, 13. And that was putting in a state-of-the-art infrastructure and the technology support necessary to back it up. Your wireless, your internet, all of that has to just work every day, all day, no exceptions. It has to be just as reliable as the lights. And if it is, teachers will begin to use it. Phase 2, we spent several years going to ISTE, learning from other districts that were well ahead of us, and we found a common denominator. All of them had embedded PD. They all had technology integrators that worked with teachers in their classroom, and that support would really fuel the initiatives going forward. So embedded PD was absolutely critical, and what we ended up doing, we believed in that so much. This was pre-referendum with a very anemic hardware budget. We transferred $500,000, almost all of it, out of our hardware budget. to hire our 8 tech coaches. That's one tech coach. They work with 100 teachers each. So we have about 850 teachers in Oshkosh. So we have 8 technology integrators. Those technology integrators, their job is to do that. And they do a phenomenal job. Phase 3, which also surprises me, some districts skip this one, provide staff with access to the technology and access to their embedded PD. We did that for 1 year in advance of our one-to-one rollout. And the last one, of course, is phase 4, which is giving students access to technology. So these were the 4 phases that we went through. And it seems to work out time and time again that this was beneficial for us. Now I'll turn it over.
So what we had going into phase 4, that intentionality that Dave talked about, those other phases, we already had this done as far as us on the technical aspect side, so it really allowed us to focus on those initiatives within the district. We already had an infrastructure, you saw that as phase 1. We did upgrade our high school wireless a year ahead of time. West high school, I think we were up to 122 APs. At North, I think we were up to like 94, so we had those very robust. We went from coverage to capacity, AP in every classroom. We had already had those tested and played with and worked out a lot of bugs. The other nice piece was the Cisco Identity Services Engine. That was focused on device management since we were really increasing the amount of our one-to-one devices. We wanted to make sure that that was seamless and smooth for students to have the device, how they're connecting to the device, how we manage the device. So the things like Capture Portal was one thing that helped remove that. We did have a Palo Alto, we were using Capture Portal, so that was a sign-in every day for staff. And
They love that. They love that.
Well, the fascinating thing is when something goes wrong now, or they're talking about the technology, they're like, oh, remember the Capture Portal? We don't have that anymore. And they're like, what is that? Capture Portal, okay, now we didn't have one of those. I'm like, how quickly they forget. And then the experience to have that 1 through 4 already done, that staff rollout the year before, and then the work with that project management team, we had a full retrospect, we had the experience of what, we had a ton of takeaways, we'll talk about some of that, just having that experience instead of just, it seemed like a lot of districts are just kind of a race to market share. With all the political aspects in the last few years, it became more of an enterprise competition, like how do we get market share, how do we stake our claim to those students. We took a longer range approach, like probably don't see most American businesses. We see that more of the international aspect, so that was exciting. And so it was Project Retrospect notes. So one of the things we had coming out of last year, then that staff rollout, we did a Project Retrospect, so it's kind of the what should we stop doing, what should we start doing, what do we need to continue doing. Dave was a part of that. Kind of share what some of those key takeaways were from our staff that had us lined up to go into our student learning program that's rolled out.
So the first thing that we have up here was clearly identify roles. One thing, so part of the project retrospect is what can you do to get better. You talk about your successes, but a main part of it is what are you learning? What are you going to use next time you go through this project? So the first thing that we have on there is clearly identify roles. In the teacher rollout, we had some confusion on who was the kind of the leads in some areas, and it was very early on that we, in the retrospect meeting, that we needed the next time through to identify those roles. Have a plan B and a C and a D. Because when you get 800 staff members or 3,000 students coming in, rarely will plan A go off as you plan. So plan for every possibility, and we'll show some things that we put in place on the student rollout that will touch on that.
And just to recap the timeline, just to build that out quickly in your head. In November 2014, we rolled out 850 Chromebooks to staff members. The following September, we rolled out 3,000 to our high school students. Next September, we'll be doing about 2,400 to our grade 6 through 8 students. So when they're referring to the retrospective about the staff rollout went very, very well. And then the retrospective looked at that and said, how do we improve? So just to kind of put it in sequence.
And we'll show you how that's improved our processes and the time that we've had to commit to this.
Yeah, this one's a very important one because a lot of times you think when you have like a rollout of 1,000 Chromebooks or 3,000 Chromebooks, everybody thinks technology. But we really wanted to come at this from an approach that we don't want them to talk about technology. The focus is on the learning that they're going to get after they receive their devices. So we wanted it to go as seamless as possible. We wanted to treat them like kings and queens on the day of rollout. We had them through getting their bags, getting them inventoried, logging onto the wireless, and the captive portal that Aaron talked about in less than 10 minutes. 475-ish, which was huge. We were standing around, right? It went pretty well. So, but yeah, so you can see that the roles, the focus on the customer, and think 2 steps ahead, think 3 steps ahead, and have different plans. And then, of course, we started morphing into the conversation of how the student rollout will be different than our staff rollout. We won't get into those details quite yet, but the people that were involved were already thinking about what are we going to do next year.
So just how that mapped out a little bit with the district tech team, we're going to show you the kind of the timeline on that. Really, our involvement with the tech team, which was the library media folks, our tech coaches, some administration, teaching staff, and a fantastic mix throughout the district, and we were involved with every one of them, which was exciting. As I mentioned, that RFP process that we split out, allowing us to choose various parts of it. We could choose warranty, one for distribution or purchase, one for the planning. That was very important. We're getting that qualitative, quantitative aspect. We'll see a little bit. That project management office, that big thing about that as a whole is getting everybody at the table, creating economies of repetition. We'll talk about that more a little bit. And then focusing on that budget, time, and efficiency that we recovered through that process. So a little bit, we're going to talk about each one of those phases just a little bit. The logistics side of it, I'm going to throw that over to Dave because he's heavily involved in throughout the process.
So yeah, to kind of kick it off, like Dave mentioned earlier, we passed the baton off to the sites with this. So again, with teacher tech, we were kind of front and center, working with the other departments, helping them along. But with the student rollout, we worked very closely with a lot of different departments, mainly the district technology team that Aaron Dave been talking about. So the slide that you see here is just kind of a snapshot of some documents that we were involved in. There's many more than this, but like I said, we were focused on the district-wide logistics, and we even had conversations about our role in this is to get the Chromebooks and the devices ordered, get them to the doors of the school, and allow the schools to plan for kind of the rest of the rollout around that.
So then we went into kind of that RFP process and again, trying to take a biases out of the process. We necessarily didn't need to see this, but we did do a lot of stuff that we were doing that has value. Actually, I was doing that for a class. One of the for work at the time, but we'll see if we can do some of that. Cost-benefit equations, and one of the things that we kept coming out to when we were trying to determine all of this was the fact that when we tried to cost out what it meant for our time and efforts, and we looked at a lot of initiatives on how we could be involved in rolling out. How do we take delivery? How do we distribute the devices? How are we involved in that process? While necessarily we could have probably put it in a cost model that made sense, it really did not, and that's a qualitative aspect of it that we were able to determine and roll on that. And we were able to say, we need to get a professional service for this. We can't cut corners on this. We had a lot of great ideas about how we might do this. Should we involve students, get the football team in to help deliver all this model? What would be the community impact of that? Those types of things we assess, but the value of our time and the quality of the rollout was just too important to miss, and we were able to determine that process.
In both rollouts, there's kind of two spots that I look back that were very key. And one of them was this here in the student rollout was where we were sitting around our tech room and talking about the football teams and the rollout, and we started talking about the professional services. And the things that you see on the slide right here seem like they're very easy to do type things, unboxing garbage, you know. When we did our teacher rollout, we didn't plan very well for that, and we realized how big of a task that is. So we learned early on that we need to invest in professional services, work with our vendors, get that relationship going. Again, I'm not going to talk about all these things on here, but a lot of the standard things you would do in a mass rollout, mass deployment were covered very well by our partner here.
So just to kind of talk about what happened with the effort that went in it was amazing just how you really know so much in terms of what these guys did. They were going to talk about all these items that we went in and started to institutionally start to make this part of our culture.
So yeah, part of the project management office, and we'll actually show you the first bullet point here, but we're trying to plan for everything. Make sure if anything that comes up, we in tech services know how to react to it, and other departments as well. So we came up with a reference guide for any, it was kind of a one-stop shop. People that were there on the day of the rollout wanted to find out just the summary of the order that was in there. We sent out questionnaires to all the stakeholders in this rollout and asking them, what are they worried about? What can we plan for? You know, like, say schools canceled, how are we gonna plan for that? I mean, that's something that you don't always think about. What happens if the wireless goes down? What happens if I get a Chromebook that's not enrolled? Like, what are we gonna do in all those scenarios? Those all came back in various questionnaires. We didn't bring those up. We relied on the support of our stakeholders to bring those up to us.
And so specifically, we'll run through these. This was that important part, and this is where we're talking about leveraging our vendors, and this really helps set us up for that success.
Yeah, this is the fun part. You know, working closely with the vendor to make sure that delivery goes smooth. We had bi-weekly meetings early on, weekly meetings in the weeks leading up to it, and then on-call type of conversations as we needed them to make sure that, just to give you a little bit of how we actually deployed these things is we got Rubbermaid bins and stuck about a dozen of them in each bin, and then had maps for PDS to deliver those right to the homerooms. So when a homeroom teacher and the students came in on deployment day, they're in their room already, ready to hand them out to the students, inventory them, and get them into their learning about the Chromebook. So again, this was the fun part, planning all that out, relying on our vendors and creating that partnership to make sure this all goes super smooth.
We had multiple vendors in the process, and that was part of our RFP processes. So we had selected multiple vendors who traditionally competed in most cases, but yet we're working together based on our mapping plan. So that was really, we felt really good about that, and that was really important for us to grow those partnerships with our vendors.
And then the dry run, I can't stress that one enough as well. We could have used a bigger dry run for our student deployment, but basically getting in a group of students prior to the actual rollout, having them walk through the process. We had plans of our innovation lab students that Dave talked about earlier, coming in one day during the summer, and it was going to be about 24 of them, but only about a half dozen showed up. But we did learn some things with the inventory process, the authentication process, but it just allows you to plan a couple weeks ahead of time what may come up on that mass rollout. And then the deployment day support, we had tons of support available. We did our 2 high schools on separate days, so we did about, I think, 1,700.
1,700 day 1 and 1,300 day 2.
Yeah.
Just a light day.
And we had a lot of people on site to help support them.
Just to give you an idea, these weren't just tech support people. We pulled every one of our instructional coaches on the curriculum side, as well as obviously those tech integrators, as well as every single media specialist. We only have 8, but there's 8. And all of those were brought to one high school for the entire time. That means the middle and elementary schools had no access to those individuals, and the entire district knew it. That no, we're descending on West High on this day, North High on this day, and we actually had too many bodies. That was the problem, is making sure those people were all organized. There were a lot of them sitting on their hands, but it was nice to have those people in.
Yep, and those people are listed here. Another Aaron talked about the DHCP scope. We had support on site that was kind of monitoring the network. So when that came up, we were able to diagnose and resolve that quickly.
So this part of that we're going to kind of kick over. It was such an important piece of that process, those professional services. And again, we had a lot of vendors, but the scope of this and for what we could accomplish, we have the opportunity to develop support to kind of share how that went.
Well, thanks, Aaron. Thanks for letting me be part of your story here today as well. So I think the important thing is they use the word vendor a lot, but in reality, what Oshkosh really was looking for was a partner. I think there's a big distinction there. You know, a vendor looks at things very transactionally, they're kind of in and out, where a partner is there for a greater purpose, and they're there for the long haul. And that really kind of, I think, allowed us to align very well for this overall initiative with the learning outcomes. Because the purpose at PDS, we really have three things that we focus on for everything that we do from a technology standpoint. We ask ourselves, how does this improve student outcomes? How does it improve instructor effectiveness? And how does it improve the day in the life of those that are in IT? That's kind of the mode of operation for PDS. I think that's what allowed us to align very well there as well. This is at a high level of things that we do at PDS. This is my quick 30-second commercial on who we are, so bear with me here. But overall, you may have seen us in the booth or different sessions throughout the conference over the last couple of days, but there's three fundamental areas that we focus on in PDS education today. It's enablement, availability, and access. For enablement, it really ties back into student one-to-one, and it really ties in a lot of the terminology that you've heard from these folks here today. It's not just about the device, it's all the things around it that create an effective one-to-one program. We have a bundle of services within that. We'll talk a little bit more on that. It's also about availability, having a robust, secure school and network infrastructure. Did highlight that before. That was step one in this journey, right? That they had to be able to do that. We embrace it at PDS while understanding kind of the utility grade needs that you have for your infrastructure, knowing the variability of both devices and students you have in your network and the density requirements you have in schools as well. And then also on the access, providing simple, secure, single sign-on capability for students to access content, but also from an IT standpoint, for the automation features and remove some of the burdens for you as well. So that's at a high level, 30 seconds about the different things that we do. Related to how we started working together was really tied into enablement in the one-to-one program. And more specifically around IT asset lifecycle management. You know, it's interesting, you know, anytime a school district takes on doing an deployment, whether it's 100 devices, 1,000 devices, or even 3,000 devices, you embark on that one time a year, typically, right? It's one time a year that you do that. We live and breathe that every single day at PDS. That's just what we do. We wrote the white paper on good lifecycle management practices 20 years ago. 20 years ago, we did that. We have a lot of methodologies around that. So in partnership here, the things that you may do once, you can take advantage of the economies of scale that come from an organization that does it every single day. Space. In the realm of possibilities that exist from fulfillment to deployment, management, support, and retirement, the 5 key areas that come around IT lifecycle management. The pictures that you see down here are really representative of the project that we worked on here together. They talked about their device on the fulfillment side. The device that they chose was the HP Chromebook 11. And I will tell you, coming in from the outside coming in, they did a very thorough job of evaluating their technology. And they weren't just thinking about what was the cool technology to put in the hands of everybody. They were thinking about who are the people that are going to be using it. What's the experience going to be for them? But also we're looking at things about what are the failure rates going to be and how are we going to be able to support that as well. So there's a lot that they put into the consideration. They did a very thorough job in evaluating that technology. Part of our role is to help them, you know, say, did you make the right choice in that in comparison to other technology offerings that are out there? Is there anything else that you should consider? I can tell you they made a very sound choice in the technology that they chose there. Deployment is really where we did the majority of our work, and Dave started talking about that here a little bit as well. So our configuration facility, what we do is we try to, when we do a deployment for a school district, we want that to be a zero-touch experience for you, or as close to that as possible. So what that means is we get all this equipment in, and again, we're able to drive down a really low acquisition price point because of all the different state contracts. So we're able to get a good product at a good price. We warehouse that in, but then what we do is we do all the advanced configuration, so again, you don't have to touch it when it goes out on site. For some districts, that means we're doing virtual site staging. You know, for the district here, we did the Google enrollment services, we put on asset tags, but you'll also notice some of the packaging that they did for the students. It's a little bit hard to see on here, but there's a case study in front of you, you can see some of the packaging on that. But the packaging they had was all about the student experience that they would actually have with that device, but also to minimize some of the failure rates that they had. Right? So instead of actually putting the burden on anybody on their staff or the students or instructor for that matter about packaging all that together, we also pre-packaged all that before it ever went to the school districts. And then put it in those bins and also leveraged our patent methodology. Wrong direction, John. Call this rack and roll. So the common thing here is you don't have to worry about unboxing or anything that Dave was talking to earlier. When we show up in our PDS trucks, we do a just-in-time deployment methodology. So you tell us where these devices need to go, to what classroom. And everything's done in advance in our configuration facility. It's all configured asset tag. You get all that information in advance. We show up on a truck with a just-in-time deployment method, bring it right into that classroom. It's a zero-touch for you. And that's how we were able to work together.
I actually blocked out a day in my calendar because I figured this wouldn't work. I'm sorry, that's what I do.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
But I always figure, always double down in preparation. So I said, I'm gonna block a day when we do this deployment, just so I'm available in case, because we had never done this before. We had never partnered with PDS before. It looked awesome, and I thought, well, let's just be there because, their teams have never gone through our buildings before. Have you ever been to West High? It's like spread out forever. So I went in, and within about 30, 45 minutes, I'm like, they got this. This is good. And I had the rest of the day back at central office working on other tasks. So a lot of the things that John talked about, we didn't have a solution for other than brainstorming. Do we bring in extra staff? Do we hire kids to come in? Do we bring in football teams? Do we do all sorts of things that wouldn't, let's put it this way, I guarantee I wouldn't have been back in my office in 30 minutes.
I think part of what allows us to be able to do this too is everything you see on here, we own. We don't outsource any of these services at PDS. We really own the whole thing, from the supply chain process to the configuration side of it, the patents that we have around our configuration facility, but also the rack and roll, even our fleet. If we were to use a third-party service to be able to deliver all their technology, where's it going to go? It's going to go to a dock, and it's going to sit there. I mean, we were actually able to get it right down into each classroom. It's very, very different. Again, we own our own trucks, we own our own drivers, and all they do is handle IT equipment each and every day. That's all they handle. There's different care that goes into that. And then at the end of the day, you have a great experience for your students.
How many times have you had a semi pull up and say, where's the loading dock? And you're like, we don't have a loading dock. And then you see the semi driver look at you and go, well, I got a bunch of computers here for you. We've had to deal with that before as well.
So really, there's the 5 things I mentioned up here was really fulfilling the deployment that we partnered on with today. What we do from a management standpoint is we look at, and boy, the demand for SCCM, we had a 5.5-hour workshop on Sunday. I can tell you there's a lot of interest in that right now. But we see this convergence that's happening right now between systems management, mobility management, and identity and access management. We also provide services around that. 24/7, 365 support, device, even end user support. And it could be for the IT staff as well. These are optional add-ons for this, and also has to retire. But again, really in our journey together, it started here with fulfillment and deployment, and really kind of leverage these unique capabilities that I already talked about up here. But the part I just want to drive home, if you think about who PDS is, we're a very client-centric organization. It's a partnership mindset. Again, asking ourselves, how is what we're doing impacting student outcomes, instructor effectiveness, and improving the day of life for these guys, because they got a lot on their plate right now. We want to come in and kind of relieve some of that burden. Try to operate consultative versus transactional. And one of the interesting things is when we had our project closure meeting, most projects have a definitive start and an end point, right? But we didn't look at it that way as a partner. In fact, our project closure meeting kind of opened the door to say, hey, what could we do differently? What could we do better next year? Not because things went wrong, but we always have to challenge ourselves and ask ourselves, 12 months from now, how could this look different? Maybe because technology is evolving in a certain way, but there's always ways to do better. And I can't say enough about how important it was for them to look at, when they did their RFP process, not just to find somebody who could provide the lowest and cheapest price on a product and come in and out. They really were looking for somebody who could partner with them, and it's been a privilege to be